At 4:13 a.m., deep in Russia's Belgorod forest, a Tor-M2 air defense system ignited and launched a 9M338 missile into the dark. A mile away, the missile struck a sparrow-sized Ukrainian drone and vaporized it in a burst of light. On the ground, Chinese troops guarding a military convoy erupted in cheers, convinced they had cleared the sky. They didn't know the drone's dying signal had already sent their coordinates to Kiev. While the soldiers celebrated, Ukraine's operators watched the feed silently, then laughed. That tiny drone had just marked 15 missile trucks for destruction, and the countdown had begun. This mission began long before the forest. Days earlier, American commercial satellites from Maxar Technologies spotted the first undeniable sign of a secret arms deal, a Chinese shipment of PLZ-05 self-propelled artillery bound for Russia. The cargo was discreetly offloaded at the port of Vladivostok under heavy guard. Every move was tracked from orbit. Once confirmed, the next layer of the hunt went airborne. Tiny, 5-pound Switchblade 300 drones climbed to 10,000 feet, following the convoy's route through the Belgorod forest. Their encrypted data streamed through Starlink without a single drop in signal. Back in Kyiv, an AI system analyzed the convoy's radio spectrum. It identified the command vehicle by its broadcast pattern and even predicted the driver's next rest point. The data was absolute. The stakes were enormous. Those trucks carried the first batch of a multi-billion-dollar weapons deal between Moscow and Beijing, the same artillery meant to break Ukraine's defenses at Kharkiv. Failure would mean losing an entire city. There was no debate in Kyiv. Every operator understood the weight of the mission. This wasn't doctrine. This was survival, built on precision, patience, and the will to reclaim home soil. At 4:15 a.m., 5 miles from the Russian convoy, a modified M113 sat hidden beneath camouflaged netting. Inside, a single operator steadied his hands, flipped a switch, and sent 25 FPV drones into the sky. Each carried a 2-pound shaped charge designed to pierce armor. However, this wasn't a typical launch. The swarm didn't climb in formation or hold a pattern. Each drone followed a different path, like an unpredictable ballet written in code. The Ukrainians called it the Phantom Swarm, a strategy built to exploit machines. The Russian TOR-M2 system was engineered to track fast yet predictable threats. That said, it couldn't read anything atypical. On radar, the swarm looked like a flock of birds, so the computer dismissed it as atmospheric noise. In that moment, the plan was flawless. The drones passed unseen. Operators in Kyiv watched the telemetry. They were confident that the trap was working. Then, a sudden burst of static ripped across the screens. The operator recognized it instantly. A Russian Orlan 10 drone had joined the hunt, and it wasn't observing. It was jamming. Within seconds, the hunter had become the target. The mission now hung by 10 seconds of signal. At 4:16 a.m., the Russian Orlan 10 pilot ignored his computer's filters. His training told him something was wrong. The radar signatures resembled birds, but the formation felt deliberate. He overrode automation and called the Spetsnaz escort commander on the ground. They didn't delay the response. The convoy's protection teams moved with precision, born of routine. A Spetsnaz unit deployed an LPD-801 anti-drone gun, an energy weapon designed to kill electronics silently. The beam tore through the air, unseen but lethal. 2 miles away, 3 Ukrainian FPV drones froze mid-flight, their propellers locked. The video feeds died instantly. Inside the MC-113, 3 screens went dark, and the operator's stomach tightened. "We've lost 3, he shouted. "They're closing in." The illusion of control faded. The convoy commander ordered, "Move now." Engines roared as 15 Chinese artillery carriers accelerated through the forest at 40 miles per hour. Above them, 2 more Orlan drones launched, expanding the search net and tightening the noose. In the span of a minute, the mission moved from stealth to survival. The operator's console glowed red, Every signal he transmitted was a beacon for the missiles now hunting him. The battle turned invisible. The drones were now targets, and the M113's signal screamed across the spectrum like a flare in the dark. Every transmission risked drawing a missile. The Russian teams had locked in, their Kornet launchers ready to erase the source of interference. At 4:17 a.m., the Ukrainian operator didn't attempt to hide. In fact, he couldn't. So, he changed the plan. His fingers moved fast, only to activate a system known as Echo Trap. Practically, it was deception. The device listened to the Orlan's own control frequency, recorded the transmission, then rebroadcast it with a calculated delay. To the Orlan's sensors, it sounded like an echo from a different location. The result was chaos. Russian drone operators stared at conflicting coordinates. Their maps are split between two different signals, one genuine and one reflected. For nearly 3 minutes, their entire jamming grid went dark. In that silence, the Ukrainian AI recalculated the convoy's path. The trucks were still moving toward the narrowest section of the forest road. The operator exhaled slowly. The next phase could finally begin. He whispered into the mic, "Confirm position." Kiev's response came seconds later. The kill zone was ready. With the Orlan's signal in disarray, the M113's operator knew it was time to strike. A side panel slid open, and a Switchblade 600 loitering munition shot into the sky with a hiss. 50 pounds of carbon fiber and steel climbed to 15,000 feet, scanning the forest below through thermal optics tuned to the Orlan's engine heat. For 30 seconds, the Russian drone circled, confused by false noises. The Switchblade closed the distance, silently and invisibly. When it struck, the explosion tore the Orlan apart to midair. A burst of light and shrapnel scattered across the treetops. On the ground, the Spetsnaz commander cursed. Their eye in the sky was gone. He ordered defensive positions, Kornet launchers angled into the trees, ready to obliterate any signal source. Inside the M113, the operator watched the feed stabilize. One victory, but the battle was far from over. His hands hovered over the console as he switched to Phase 2. Telemetry linked, uplinks verified, swarm aligned. 22 FPV drones tightened formation in the clouds, waiting for command. He whispered, "Engage," and the drones descended in perfect sync. The counterattack had begun, not against soldiers, but against the systems that shielded them. The forest was still burning when the next threat arrived. The Russian commander, blind and furious, called for air support. Minutes later, from a nearby base, a Ka-52 Alligator lifted off the tarmac, a 12-ton Predator built only to hunt and destroy. Loaded with Vickers missiles and a 30mm cannon, the helicopter skimmed the treetops at high speed, its thermal sensors sweeping for any trace of heat. It didn't take long. From 5 miles away, the M113's engine, glow, stood out like a beacon. The pilot locked on. In his visor, the Ukrainian vehicle was a single glowing rectangle in a sea of cold forest. He confirmed the target and fired. Inside the M113, alarms screamed. A red icon flashed across the operator's console. Vickers missile lock. Impact in 20 seconds. His heart slammed in his chest. The same heat that powered his systems had betrayed him. He knew the missile was already cutting through the air faster than sound. There was no time for escape, no shelter to hide behind. 20 seconds to impact. 20 seconds to either die or think faster than the machine chasing him. At 4:19 a.m., the M113 operator's console lit up like a flare. The warning tone was rhythmic and impossible to ignore. His training kicked in, stripping away fear and leaving calculation. Instead of reaching for armor, he reached for chemistry. A small cylindrical canister on the M113's roof fired with a hiss, arcing into the air before bursting into a dense aerosol cloud. It was a formula designed to bloom into a heat field hotter than any vehicle in it. The new signal appeared irresistible through the Ka-52's optics. The Vickers missile adjusted course, hunting the false target. 10 seconds later, the night split apart. A blinding flash lit the treetops as the missile detonated harmlessly inside the phantom heat. Inside the M113, the shockwave rocked the cabin. Dust fell from the ceiling panels, but the system stayed alive. The operator's pulse steadied. He had successfully outsmarted a machine built for killing tanks, but victory was fleeting. The Alligator was still above, circling like a predator denied its prey. Its cannon rotated, ready for another strike. The Ukrainian operator whispered, "Time for Plan C." Imagine if you were him, alone, tracked, and running out of tricks. Would you stay hidden or take the fight to the sky? The Ukrainian operator knew hiding was suicide. The Alligator's sensors were sweeping every inch of the forest canopy. Each second he waited increased the odds of detection. So he stopped running the math and made a choice that defied it. He armed his last resort, a small FPV drone modified in the field with an experimental EMP payload. No bigger than a dinner plate, it carried the potential to fry a helicopter worth millions. The operator throttled it forward. The drone shot into the night, its camera trembling as it climbed toward the thermal blur on the horizon. The Ka-52's targeting computer saw it too late. The pilot dismissed it as debris. As the drone closed to within a few hundred feet, the operator triggered detonation. There was no fireball or noise. Just a silent pulse of energy erased everything electronic within its reach. Inside the Ka-52's cockpit, every screen blinked once, then died. The aircraft dropped altitude, barely staying level as the pilot fought dead hydraulics. Above the M113, the Alligator turned from hunter to crippled prey, gliding toward base in the dark. The forest went quiet again, but the mission wasn't done yet. At 4:21 a.m., the M113's interior glowed in the dim red light of its monitors. The operator watched 22 FPV drones hold formation above the forest. The sky was now clear, and the Ka-52 was gone, so nothing stood between them and the convoy. He entered the final authorization code. From 1,200 feet up, 22 drones folded into a downward spiral, descending like falling stars, each one locked onto a specific target, the vulnerable fuel tanks lining the Chinese artillery trucks. The first impact sounded like a hammer striking metal, followed by a flash so bright it momentarily erased the forest shadows. A fuel truck erupted. 600 gallons of diesel vaporized into a firestorm that tore through the column. One truck fed another. Explosions rolled through the trees like thunder. Heat waves rippled across the canopy, bending branches and shattering windows half a mile away. Inside the M113, the operator shielded his eyes. In less than 3 minutes, $70 million in hardware was erased by machines smaller than backpacks. Next, a domino of destruction cut through the forest road. Every truck carried enough fuel to feed the inferno, and every detonation threw molten metal into the night. The warheads had been programmed with a fraction of a second delay, long enough to pierce steel before igniting. That tiny pause multiplied the power of every strike. Within minutes, the convoy was unrecognizable. Frames melted and tires burned until they disappeared. Fire rolled low along the ground, consuming everything between the trees. From miles away, the waves of destruction registered on seismic monitors. That signal meant confirmation for Kiev that the strike had succeeded. The forest glowed orange on the operator's feed. The mission that began with a satellite image had ended in flames. The explosions faded, leaving only the crackle of burning metal and the hiss of ruptured fuel lines. The convoy that once carried Beijing's promise and Moscow's power was now a corridor of smoke and silence. By sunrise, satellites would mark the site. Analysts would count the craters, and command would call it a success. But down in that forest, Ukraine had proven that will beats weight. Share this with someone keenly interested in understanding the true dynamics of modern warfare. Subscribe to know when Russia has a bad day and how Ukraine makes it happen.